All right, welcome to Your Wi-Fi and You. Trying to pattern off of the old videos in the 1950s. So, the agenda is going to be what is Wi-Fi from a overarching standpoint, how it can be hacked, some different types of smart home devices that will not be exhaustive because there's too many to list, some vulnerabilities that exist, a search engine called Shodan, which is terrifying, some different ways and methods to defend yourself. And Christina asked me to add VPNs, a minor guide on how to use VPNs for that purpose, which is really key whenever you're out using public Wi-Fi, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to do PowerPoint karaoke, but what we are going to talk about, Wi-Fi is basically a term. It's a brand name created to talk about wireless networking technology. Some of the key points in wireless network technology are wireless routers and access points. A router is also known as a WLAN device, or wireless local area network device. So you have every house that has a wireless router has a wireless network. That's just how it works. So a router combines the networking functions of an access point and a router. An access point is what allows devices to connect to a wireless network. So it's clear as mud, but just trust me, there's a difference between a wireless router and a wireless access point. But they kind of, router serves as both functions. All right, so Wi-Fi pretty much operates in two frequencies, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. So what is the difference? The big difference with 2.4 and 5 gigahertz is speed and distance. 2.4 gigahertz is slower, but the signal goes further. So you're much more likely, as you're walking across the house, to be able to connect to the 2.4 gigahertz range versus the 5 gigahertz. But 5 gigahertz is insanely fast compared to 2.4. Like a 2.4 gigahertz currently can support up to 450 or 600 megabits, and the 5 gigahertz can sort of go over 1 gigabits, which is surprisingly fast. Not really going to talk too much about this one, but those are the different wireless standards. And if you guys have any questions, just stop me, because it's supposed to be a conversation anyway. But you really need to look at the wireless standard that your devices and your router support. The most current ones are 2011 AC. They're working on some new faster ones now, but a lot of the older routers especially will only go as fast as the slowest device, because if they start going faster than that device will get kicked off the network. So if you have an old phone that uses 802.11n and you're using 802.11 AC on the router, it's possible that that is throttling your network speed. Just FYI. Okay, so now we're going to get into, you've set up your wireless router. You have everything good to go, everything's great. But you have a password. How can you be hacked? Well, really easily, as it turns out. In no real order, a lot of the faults you run into are use of the default SSID, that's your network name, and passwords. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, those are the 10 most common passwords worldwide, which makes brute forcing or password guessing a great thing to do, because all you have to do is just run down that list. Some other things that people just don't do or do badly is they don't change the router configuration username password, because those names are out there. So like Cisco's administrative username and password to get into their routers is admin or admin and then no password, and people just don't go in and change it. I'm not going to break down encryption. That can be a thing in itself, but not using WPA2 encryption, which is, it's the standard now. You can break it, but it takes a lot more to do than a WEP or one of the original encryption passwords. Deauthentication attacks. That's whenever someone basically shuts off your access to your router. the internet protocol, which is how you transmit and receive information on the internet. It's called IP. The IP has different types of what's called packets, and it breaks information down into packets and it sends it back and forth. There's one type called a deauthentication packet, and that is not validated by the system itself. So if someone gets onto your network or has the ability to, they don't even need to get on your network, really. If someone has the right type of wireless device, you can send deauthentication packets to the network, which will then keep everyone in range of that router or that access point. It will keep them from being able to access it. That would be part of attack that you'd want to use, because then whenever you try to connect to it again, and I have that special wireless receiver, I can start capturing that information, so I can do exactly what it says there. I can try to brute force your password, or I can set up a rogue access point, such as an evil twin or a man-in-the-middle attack. Those you see a lot in free Wi-Fi areas. You know, when you go to like Starbucks, or you go to a hotel. Evil Twin is setting up a similar looking network name or SSID and having people connect, like the free airport Wi-Fi or Starbucks. Just make it Starbucks 1, and then they're actually getting to the internet, but it's not an actual approved wireless SSID. Man-in-the-middle attacks is basically setting up a wireless hotspot with your computer with the exact same SSID and a stronger signal than they would get, because your devices are always going to be trying to go to the strongest one, and people will want to go to the strongest one because it's a faster speed. And then what they do is they connect to the other one, and they capture your data as it goes through their system into the actual access point that it was designed to be hitting up. So that's when the wireless packet sniffing comes into play, where they can start capturing those packets and break them down. If those packets are not encrypted, like via a VPN or anything, then they can see everything you're doing. They can see the information you're sending to your bank. They can see your username and passwords for your email if you're logging in and stuff like that. Another issue you're going to run into, and I'll talk about it in another minute, is wireless protected setup, or WPS pin attacks. Those are horrible, and there's too many more to list. I'm trying to be brief and keep it around 30-ish minutes. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so some of the hacking resources, and these are all open source and freely available to get. Kali Linux, Backbox, Parrot Security, Deft Linux, Samurai, others. And they're all different flavors, but they are a penetration tester's or hacker's dream, because they have all these suites and capabilities already part of the operating system, like Aircrack NG, Metasploit. Metasploit enables you to look for vulnerabilities in different types of softwares. Reaver, Pixie Dust. Reaver and Pixie Dust work together for brute forcing and hacking Wi-Fi's. That's what they're really for. All right, WPS, what is it? It's that little blue button on your router. It's an easy way to connect a device to your wireless router without remembering that really annoying password and a huge vulnerability. Why is it a vulnerability? All right, which do you guys think is harder to crack? A 14-digit alphanumeric password, or an 8-digit number sequence that's broken into 2 4-digit keys? Anybody? Anybody want to guess how long it takes to crack those 2 4-digit keys?
Keys. 3 minutes.
0.19 milliseconds.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, it takes longer to transmit and capture it than that.
Yep. Yeah, a Pixie Dust attack can capture and break those in seconds.
Cool.
So if a 14-digit strong alphanumeric would take about 2,000 years at current computing rate to break. But a WPS, it's supposed to be an 8-digit pin, which is bad enough, but it's actually broken up into 2 4-digit pins, with the very last digit being just a validation check. So it's really only a 4-digit pin and a 3-digit pin. And those are insanely quick to break. And it's just 0 through 9. don't use WPS, whatever you do. Okay, any questions on Wi-Fi, WPS, anything like that so far? Because I'm about to switch over to common smart home devices.
Is there a way to disable WPS then?
Yes, and we'll get into that later. In fact, it's 3 slides down.
Okay.
But each router is slightly different. So what you're really going to want to do is look at, well, one, go into your router, which they all have their own access page via a web browser you can get to. It tells you in the manual how to get to it. Change your password, and then just go in and just disable it. It's just all of the new routers have the ability to disable WPS, but they come enabled by default.
When we set up our home WLAN, the newer routers have the ability to set up a guest LAN. Is it truly a guest LAN, or is it just, you know, something virtual that can be easily hacked?
It is virtual, but it's not easily hacked. It's actually a VLAN. It's a virtual LAN. It's a sectioned off area with their own sub intra network.
Okay, so it's got its own subnet.
Yep.
And only access to the internet per se.
Yes, like they won't even see your devices that are not on the guest LAN.
Right, got it. So that's one technique people could use.
Yes. I will say that I'm prejudiced going into this. I highly recommend not using smart home devices, like any of them. Some examples are smart speakers and displays like Amazon Echo, Google Nest, Hub, Sonos. Smart plugs, those enable smart type functionality for dumb type appliances. Being able, say you can't afford or don't want to spend the money for a smart crock pot. Well, this enables you to control turning it on, turning it off using app and voice control generally by basically just adding to the plug. Home security cameras, including doorbell sensors, child monitors, those are terrifying. Smart locks and home security systems with door and window sensors, voice control, app control. Dear God, don't use those. Heating and cooling, like Nest and Ecobee. Lighting, not see as many of those, but you'll see them. Usually you'll see things on timers. Smart kitchen devices, like oven, cookers, grills, refrigerators, and of course, the ever-loving coffee pots. Vacuums, like Roomba, stuff like that. And the list just goes on and on. There's everything is becoming part of what's called the Internet of Things, which is basically every type of device that can connect to the internet. And there are so many. So the issue is these devices are intended and designed for ease of use by the customer, with security not really thought about at all, or if it is, as an afterthought, as a add-in later, and then they never get to it because no one ever calls them on it. They connect to your Wi-Fi network or your Bluetooth, and unfortunately, the added complexity of the use of that device and the apps that control them creates vulnerabilities. Like the Fabaro Smart Home, it wasn't an access to the device itself, it was an access to the cloud server. It wasn't encrypted. It allowed unauthenticated users to access that backup data, which meant that people could know all the details about the home, including location and the location of the user's smartphone, the email address, and the full list of connected devices, passwords, and the master password of the smart home itself. The Nest Smart Camera, which is what you can set up on your door, like those doorbells, allowed devices connected to change the user's home or away status, which then affected how it was locked. So if you could access a low threat system, like a light, you could change the status because the system itself would accept a message from that low threat system, like the light, say, oh, the user just said that they're home now. Oh, okay, well, the system itself will then turn off the alarm. The Kiwi Smart Lock, it enabled hackers to intercept traffic between the app and the lock, basically stealing the keys to the door. And Amazon Echo has some serious voice and laser vulnerabilities because researchers found that they could point a laser at a smart speaker and then make it do whatever they wanted, open a door, turn off the system. And some of the bolster vulnerabilities, there's some research where researchers were able to take control of the smart device itself, and then they could go in and using the speaker itself, they could play, you know, Alexa, open the door, pin 1247, and they just cycle through that over and over again until Alexa unlocked the door. So I'm not a big fan. Okay, if that's not bad enough, welcome to Shodan. Shodan is a search engine similar to Google, but different. Google trawls the internet. Or sorry, Google trawls the World Wide Web, and Shodan trawls the internet, which includes the Internet of Things. The World Wide Web is a small fraction of the actual internet. It's designed to research if IoT devices are found on the internet. Data is taken from the web banners, which is metadata about software running on a device. So as you can see in the picture, it tells us what type of software, Apache server, the version, when it was last modified, all sorts of information. And let's see. So this is actually one of the views from one I found on Shodan. That's a webcam in Alabama. And that's right now. Yeah, 2024. And that's just there, freely able to find. And that's not even the worst thing you can do with it.
Does the sign on the gate say warning this premises is being monitored?
It might. I don't know. I haven't really seen it. The quality isn't that good.
No, I just being facetious here.
I'm laughing. But yeah, so it's showed it's in the resources on the last page of the PowerPoint. But go to Shodan. Just take a look at all the things you can find there. Okay, how can you keep these things from happening? As you can see on the right, and that's just from my wireless router. That's actually not my router, that's from the manual, but you go into the wireless to disable WPS. It's got a little checkbox, check off for enable WPS. Always research before you get into buying smart devices, because that ease of use comes with a cost. Always use care when connecting to free Wi-Fi points. I cannot stress that enough, because you have no guarantee that that Wi-Fi access point is what you think it's going to be or what it should be. RTFM, it's for those who haven't run into it before, it's an acronym. Read the bleeping manual on your devices.
Fun.
Always look at the manual, because that will tell you and you can even look at the manuals before you buy, because you can research and look at the manuals for the smart device you want to get, and you can see what it does and does not do. Do not ever use WPS on your routers. Use strong passwords, and I'm talking between 10 and 15 characters, alphanumeric with caps and special characters. Special characters is the entire numbers on your keyboard if you hit shift. So exclamation point, @ symbol, hashtag, $, all of those. Update your router firmware. That once again is where your router comes in, your manual comes into play for your router. They update them periodically. It's not all the time, but if they did, it's highly recommended that you update, because it's probably because they found a vulnerability and this is fixing it. Create a secure SSID name, not the default ones. Always change your router admin name and admin password. Almost all the current routers have the ability to create what's called a whitelist, which is to restrict access. You can look at the MAC address, which is, we get a MAC address if people have questions on it, but the MAC address is different from your IP address. It's device specific, but you can restrict the Wi-Fi access to the MAC address of the device. So you know that only your phones and your computers and your TVs, TVs, smart TVs, or anything that connects to Wi-Fi has a MAC address. Use a web filter to whitelist sites that can be visited. That's really good if you have kids. Windows 10 actually has parental features now. I highly recommend using those, because that way you can keep things from coming onto your network that are downloaded because someone wanted to get the latest version of Minecraft. And as you mentioned, the guest network. Isolate the guest network. It's already created, just enable it. That's really common on current routers, and it creates a virtual local area network so that whoever's on that can't see any of your devices or anything else that's on your network. All they can do is access the internet. Okay, VPNs. VPNs create a private network from a public interconnection. All right, it's extremely useful because Wi-Fi spots are a great resource for hackers. What it does, if you haven't dealt with one before, is it creates an encrypted path from your computer or device. It could be a phone, it could be a tablet, anything, because they have apps for that too. From your device to wherever that endpoint is for that server, and it encrypts all the data going from point A to point B. So it's almost like having a direct point-to-point connection that no one can really get into. It scrambles the data, so that man in the middle or evil twin attacks, it doesn't matter because they can't see any of your data. It's too scrambled. They hide browsing history, your IP address and location, what device you have on there. So like if they're trying to capture packets and information that you're sending, they can't even see what device you're using, the web activity you're doing. Earlier made a joke about going incognito. Incognito does nothing except for on your computer. It doesn't really, I know it was a joke, but for anyone who hasn't dealt with incognito and you think it keeps people from finding you, it does not. All it does is locally keep your computer from tracking what you're doing. VPNs, free versus paid. You get what you pay for. So do your research on what you need, because some of them are free web applications and they only work if you enable them while you're using Chrome, and other ones are software-based that basically force all internet traffic to go through the VPN tunnel. Now my VPN of choice is private internet access because it's cheap, it's very effective, they're pretty secure, it's very easy to use and configure, and it has over 12,000 servers in 74 countries, which means I can pop out pretty much anywhere I want to with no real repercussions. All right, those are the references, more references, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen because that is the end. What questions do y'all have?
You set up your own like VPN server at your home, so like if you're out somewhere else traveling and at Starbucks, you can connect to your own VPN at home and go safely out your own internet that way?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely can. So there are ways that you can actually, there's different things you can do. You can basically, it's called flashing your router, which is basically just re-imaging the firmware on your router to add functionality that's already there. They just turn it off because most people don't use it. But yeah, there are ways like using OpenVPN and things like that. You can create your own VPN server at your house, and you can have the server client functionality with your smart device or your laptop, and it will connect through to where your VPN is.
Yeah, there are some router configurations. Am I on mute?
No, we can hear you.
There are router
No, you're good.
configurations that allow you to put that VPN server on your network and then route an external address into that server only.
Yep.
It's a little tricky, but it's doable.
Yeah, pfSense is a good one. It allows you to basically create your own server/router. It's very versatile. We use that at my work when we were creating our own ad hoc VPN networks, and that worked really well. It's a good question.
So let's assume we went down the IoT device route,
Mhm.
and we have lots of cool things that might have vulnerabilities in our house. I've contemplated this and started it, so it's just kind of ping this idea off of you. But I've created a separate email address and account to register and have strong passwords for those connections to those providers like Samsung, like whatever, that connect the devices together.
Mhm.
So they can talk to each other, but they can't not necessarily talk to anything else like the computers on our network.
Mhm.
It, it creates at least another level of isolation for that purpose. So separate and distinct user account, other than my, Doug Walcott at Gmail, which when somebody gets a hold of is going to try every IoT provider out there on it.
Mhm.
Just what are your thoughts?
I think that type of virtual air gapping is a good idea. It will help if, from an account basis, that will help. If your devices, let's just say, even if you've done that and you had smart devices and they were on their own security VLAN, that's great. So they can't really see the TV and the other things. But if those smart devices are connected to a smart home, I guess, controller, like say Alexa or any of those things, or if those devices are connected through the network to anything else in the house, then it potentially can create that vulnerability. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sort of. There's always a way, right? That's how Target got hacked.
Yep.
Through points of escalation and transfer.
Yeah. Because what I would do is I would look for
Told us what you would do. You would turn everything off.
maybe.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, if I was trying to do something like that, I would scope out the house both virtually and physically, because I would be wanting, it depends on what I'm going for. If I'm trying to access your computer or physically access your home, then I would look for the smart outlets, the smart devices, Alexa, and then I would start running through and seeing what changes I could make, whether I could turn lights on and off, or if I could change your home away status. And if I can do that, then I can make those changes that I need to, because it kind of comes down to what they're really looking for. And you never know that until after the fact.
Right.
What yours would do would help somewhat if there was a data dump on the cloud where they got the username and passwords.
Which
Okay.
happens all the time.
Yep. So that would help with that. Not so much with the physical vulnerabilities inherent with using the smart devices, but yes, it doesn't hurt. I personally don't believe in smart devices. We created our own smart calendar that isn't connected to anything, and it controls nothing. It just tells us, when things are going to happen for the family. But I have nothing that it controls anything in the house, because it's just too easy to break. Well, thanks y'all for your time, and y'all have a good one.